Switching gears now, there's an armada of secret prisons around the world. And as it turns out, many of them are run and or funded by the United States. Now, over the last few years, President Obama has closed many of the CIA's so-called black sites, where methods like waterboarding and wall slamming were commonplace. But it turns out there are ways of getting around the perception of torture, and those ways are still going on today. Let's bring in Jason Ditz, a news editor at antiwar.com. Jason, let's first talk about something called extraordinary rendition, where suspected terrorists are transferred to countries known to employ harsh interrogation techniques. From your research now and lately, how common is this?
Well, the scary thing is it's completely unclear how common this is. It's been happening, of course, for the past decade, since early in the Bush administration. And we know it's still going on because even when the Obama administration promised to stop with some of the more serious excesses of torture, they did say that the extraordinary renditions would continue. But we really don't know the full extent of it, and it's possible we never will. It's certainly bigger than any of us know.
I know there's been some reporting, though not much, on the differences between FBI tactics with prisoners and tactics used by the CIA. I know the FBI in a lot of cases is known for using a little bit more empathetic, non-physical techniques. The CIA known for using things like waterboarding. Talk a little bit about these different approaches and what you've seen in terms of their success rates.
Well, certainly the FBI is dealing more with American citizens, whereas the CIA is dealing with people, in some cases, just kidnapped off the streets of some random country. So there's a considerably larger risk of the FBI getting sued for torturing people. So I think it's a practical matter in that way.
But in terms of getting information.
Right, and that too. Torture simply doesn't work. It doesn't produce reliable information. So when the CIA is doing this, they can get confessions for whatever they want to get confessions out of, but whether they're reliable confessions or if they're just random confessions to stop the torture, who's to say?
I know that even after Abu Ghraib, that was one of the first instances that the American public really saw that this was going on. But even after those photos were published back in 2004, there was a poll that went out, and still 35% of Americans polled said, you know, they felt torture was acceptable. Why do you think this is?
Well, it's a terrifying statistic, and depending on how you ask that question, I'm sure you could still get a pretty high number today. I think, for one thing, the American people have been terrified into believing that there are these constant, enormous threats that simply don't exist, and that this is the only way to prevent them. And some of it is also the fact that there haven't been major terrorist attacks in the last few years, and they're taking that and saying, well, see, this must be working.
Absolutely. And there are some out there who say, you know, the U.S. is using torture a whole lot less now because they're simply instead using the tactic of assassination, I guess you could say. Of course, we saw that with Osama bin Laden. We see it with drone strikes that go on. Intelligence goes back to the government that suspected terrorists are at a certain location. Instead of capturing them, sending in boots on the ground, they're simply bombed, or, you know, a drone is sent in. Talk a little bit about this change and, you know, kind of what you found, especially in your coverage of this.
Oh, absolutely. And in Pakistan alone, we've seen well over 2,000 people killed by drone strikes since President Obama took office. We've got the names of maybe 40 people, 50 people, and the rest are just anonymous suspects that we have no idea who they are, what they did, why they were targeted for assassination at all. And it's a terrifying thing, but it also solves for the CIA this problem of all the people that they arrested that simply didn't do it. I mean, people that they brought to Guantanamo Bay that a couple of years later they had to admit were just innocent people that had been kidnapped by some militia and turned over to them for a reward as a supposed Taliban. They get tortured. They're eventually found innocent. And you don't have that problem if you're just assassinating people randomly. there's no oversight to this, and there's, in most cases, no witness because they blowed everybody up at the site.
Talk a little bit about, I know that your paper has really covered this a lot. When we talk about these black sites, when we talk about these secret prisons, where are they?
Well, a lot of them, we don't know where they are. There was one in northern Poland we know about, which was on the grounds of a Polish intelligence facility, and that the at the time Polish government had approved of. The current Polish government's investigating it to try to find out who approved it, because of course it's a violation of both Polish law and European Union law, as well as international law, to have allowed this facility in the first place. We've certainly heard some talk that there is a site at Diego Garcia. Past that, we're sure there are other sites, but where they are, we just don't know.
To what extent has this changed? I mean, a lot of people think of torture as Abu Ghraib. They think of it as, you know, the post 9/11 terrorist attacks for the purpose of trying to get information from suspected terrorists. But really, Jason, it seems to me this has been going on for decades.
Absolutely. It's been a problem since long before 9/11 of the government using these questionable, and in some cases not so questionable and just downright reprehensible, tactics to coerce confessions out of detainees. It got a lot worse after 9/11, and it continues to this day, and it's through its own momentum and the determination to keep as much of it as possible a secret. I imagine that it's probably going to continue for quite some time longer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. We know so little, and there have been a few reporters who have really kind of gotten on the ground. Jeremy Scahill for The Nation, of course, one of the most well-known ones. But we know so little about where they are, that these sites even exist, what happens at them. Do you think that once news does start to get out that these exist, that people are going to be outraged and call for an end to this? Or, I mean, how do you see this playing out?
Well, that's certainly the hope, but historically, at least in recent history, it hasn't panned out. When we find out about these things, there's a week or two of scandal. They promise that they've stopped at that site. Of course, you close down the black site once it's discovered, but you just move all those facilities someplace else. And it's pretty much business as usual afterwards. God only knows where, and God only knows how many.
Yeah, I think you highlight an important point when we talk about these black sites, which is they're black for a reason. We really know so little about what goes on there, but it's important to bring it up and sort of talk about some of the things surrounding this. Jason Ditz, news editor at antiwar.com. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.